How's it going, Coach? First question is, you went to high school in Pennsylvania, but you came all the way out here to the Bay for JUCO. Why is it that you came all the way out here to play?
Yeah, so I had a teammate in high school. We were really good friends growing up. Um, he moved out to Hollister, California to wrestle. There was a really good wrestling coach there that, in Pennsylvania, if you're either a football player or a wrestler, so a lot of people wrestle and play football. And he moved out there for wrestling. And um, then the only offer that he had was to go to BYU, and he didn't really want to go to BYU. Obviously, him not being Mormon, my friend Chuck, and so he went to junior college at Foothill. And when I got done playing my senior year, was really my first year that I actually got to play a full year of football in high school because I had transferred every year, went to a different school every year. And so my grades were a little, messed. I didn't have like the right credits, right, to go straight to a 4 year college. And so um, I was running out of options, didn't really have much going on. And he told me about the junior college system, like, hey man, some of these guys don't even have like a high school diploma and you can get into junior college. And I was like, seriously? And he was like, yeah, I'll talk to the coach and, get you an opportunity. And I talked to Coach Spurback at the time at Foothill College, and he gave me an opportunity to come out there and play, uh, start my career out there and play. So that's how I got out to California.
Nice. And then you went to Deanza the next year afterwards. Is that correct?
Yeah, I went to Foothill first and then went to Deanza my second year.
Gotcha. What was your process of getting recruited from Deanza to then go to Tulsa?
Yeah, so when I was at Deanza, I led all junior college players in receiving touchdowns. I think I led in it like everything, like in the state of California and all of junior college. And so a lot of schools inquired about me, but I had gotten to, just some minor altercations, I guess, at Foothill with the coach on things that were promised and, just different situations there. And so, um, it kind of gave me like a bad rep on my name, I guess. And so a lot of schools like shied away from recruiting me. And University of Tulsa, Gus Malzahn and Mike Norvell, they had just got to the University of Tulsa with Coach Graham. Todd Graham is the head coach. They needed a wide receiver. I think they called me on a Tuesday, and I was on the plane like on a Thursday. And that was the school that really gave me a real opportunity. They didn't play any games. They didn't like, we need to talk to this coach and this counselor and, ask 10 people about me. They just gave me a chance. And so they offered me a full ride and I accepted it on the spot.
Oh, that makes sense. Um, how how do you think your experience differed from the way you're recruiting guys nowadays?
No, I don't. For me, like, I don't let anybody deter us from recruiting a kid. I think that all kids, where they're raised at, how they're raised, who raises them, they all have different norms, what they consider normal. As a kid, your life is kind of dictated. You grow up in circumstances that you don't put yourself in. And so we give kids chances, we give kids opportunities that other schools might not like or might not want, or we might be their second or third chance. And so we recruit the same way. That I don't think that we're, you know, a lot of coaches say, well, I don't recruit kids based off their parents or their what school they went to or, character stuff. And I don't think we don't really look into trying to judge kids and condemn kids. We look at just, do they love football? Do they have a plan for their life and what they want to accomplish? Do they have the characteristics that we look for in a player at each position? And, the main thing is if they love football, we feel like they will accomplish, becoming a better person, doing well in the community, being great, on the football field. They'll strive every day to be excellent. They'll do study hall. They'll do all the things that's possible to actually play the games. And so that strategy's got me to this point as a head coach, and now we use it here at Sac State to recruit players.
100%. And it feels like you kind of derive that from your past and how you got recruited, and you're just kind of paying it forward. I like that. So you go to Tulsa. You guys have a really good offense. You end up tearing your ACL. I think it was like in the final game of the season that year. And then you still get a shot to play for the Dolphins, tear your ACL again. How did you get into coaching or decide you wanted to coach once you saw that, like, hey, this, playing thing isn't going to be for me anymore?
Yeah, I mean, those that can't teach, I really didn't. Obviously, like for me, it was a little challenging, I guess, because I was really depressed. I was making a ton of money. I was 21 years old, making a ton of money. I thought that, I was going to accomplish my dream of playing in the NFL. But I was getting paid by the NFL. I was getting paid by the Dolphins. And so for me, the first year, my rookie year, I didn't do anything but just rehab my knee and party every day and just do what a rookie would do, a 21-year
Mhm.
old that's making a ton of money. And then, you get tired of just living that way and not really having purpose, not feeling like you're really accomplishing anything. And one of my friends, who's now a top football agent, we went to junior college together. Sam Mirza, he's from the Bay Area. He played at James Logan in Union City. He was like, "Man, go help out at James Logan. They need a coach." I was rehabbing my knee in the Bay. My daughter was just born, and so I went over there, and I knew, like, I mean, literally the first day that I went on the field, I knew that that was probably what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Just the way that the kids, gravitated towards me, the information and the knowledge they wanted to acquire from me to help them achieve their dreams. And then it really, cleaned me up because I never wanted to be a hypocrite as far as like, if I'm telling players to live right and do right and show up and be accountable, be disciplined, then I had to live that way. And so, I still talk to those kids from James Logan in 2010 when I first started coaching. Those kids really saved my life and put me back on the right track.
That's awesome. Now, did you know that you always wanted to make the jump into college ball?
No, I mean, I told you I didn't even really want to start coaching when I started coaching. I was God has a funny sense of humor. I mean, I guess at the time I didn't think it was very funny, but the NFL lockout happened. I was supposed to sign with the Eagles. The NFL lockout happened. That was after my first year of coaching. In that off season, I trained and worked myself to get ready to go back into the league. I thought the Eagles were going to sign me. They didn't because of the NFL lockout. Then I went to Montreal Alouettes, and I think it was my second day up there. I tore my ACL again. So this is like the third or fourth ACL surgery in 3 years, 2 or 3 years spanned. And then, as I was, in the hospital up there after surgery, my surgery was had a little bit of complications with my surgery. So I was like in the hospital for a while, and I just started putting a plan together to come back and coach, like really take coaching serious and like what would my plan be. So, um, my aspirations to go to college, really what actually made me get into college football was I got suspended as a high school coach 1 year for a kid getting recruited by multiple colleges, like Pac-12, SEC schools were coming to see a kid, and I'd take him out of class when the coaches flew a long way to see him,
Mhm.
and people acted weird towards me because I was trying to help the kid get recruited. And then the next year, I had just won Coach of the Year, and we raised $1 million for a school. And they asked me to like work in the elementary school and not be, they didn't like want me in the high school because of all the attention that I brought and college coaches that were coming in. And so I was kind of just like, this high school thing is like getting weird now. So that's actually how got into college. I was like, you know what, I might as well take my chance in college because if it was up to me, I would have stayed a high school head coach. I loved I had players living with me. I had coaches living with me. I loved just taking care of everybody, the community part of it, uh, you know, charity work, fundraising. Like I loved all that stuff of being a high school head coach. I really didn't have any desire to go be a college coach. I thought those guys were, I I was there with Mike Norvell and, Todd Graham and all those guys where they slept in the office. Like they literally slept in the office 2 days a week. And, I was like, absolutely. Like, I don't want to do that at all, And so, but then I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to be a successful coach and I'm winning and I'm developing kids in high school that, I took over two high schools that were 0 and 10. One was 1 and 9, sorry, and one was 0 and 10, never had a winning season. And we win the championship, go to the playoffs. I'm like, I'm pretty decent at this coaching thing. I might as well, give it a shot in college. And it was really college coaches like Taj Lepoe and Fred Guiducci and those guys would come past my school and they would say, man, like you're detailed, you're organized, like you could be a college coach. They were really the ones that put the thought in my head. I didn't, me personally, like I'm not one of, like I always struggle with young coaches that I meet. They have like all these ambitions. And I'm like, man, like first you got to like learn how to actually coach. You know what I mean? Like, I was just coaching and it kind of happened for me through, players and coaches telling me that I could be a college coach, not because I wanted to be.
That makes perfect sense. And you got suspended. Was that at St. Patrick, St. Vincent that you got suspended?
Yeah, they had asked me like I think it was like a 2 or 3 day suspension as a because I took a kid out of class
Oh,
and
weird.
like I was like, okay.
Hmm. Um, I've heard you explain, talking about some of your different stops at high schools, that you didn't always have the best kids. Obviously, you took over some 1 and 9 and 0 and 10 teams, so you had to find some schematical advantages, right, to be able to compete. Do the things that you learned during those times, do they still kind of come into play now that you're coaching college football?
Yeah, I honestly laugh when I see people copy our offense. NFL teams use it, college teams use it, and I'm like, this all started at high schools, like that nobody would want to go to. I mean, like this, when I went to Waynesboro High School, I remember my first meeting with the players. A kid said to coach, "Why would you come here? You're way too good for us. Like you do not need. We suck. Like we're terrible." Like they were the last ranked school in the state of Pennsylvania. So we would to think that the plays from that school would be, you know, a national deal where multiple teams use them, and whether they want to give me credit for it or not, like I literally have someone who tracks. There's a guy at EA Sports who literally tracks everybody who uses plays that he knows specifically are my plays, and he tells me about it and shows it to me. And so the crazy thing is, like, that all started at just out of desperation, trying to help kids find a way to be successful. Even though we didn't have the biggest line or the best skill players, it was just trying to find a way to score points and not make excuses for kids, not tell them that they're, because I see coaches all the time, like, every coach wants to, if you look at the big schools, right? If you look at the, no offense to these schools because they built their programs, at a time too they were building, but the De La Salles and Folsoms, they have 50 coaches, right? Because everybody wants to join the winning team and have the, be on the team where they have the best kids. But you go to a losing high school and you can barely get 3 or 4 coaches out there. You got teachers trying to coach the kids because they know like those kids aren't going to get them any acclaim
Mhm.
or success or
Not
and
real well.
so I just wanted to make sure that we gave kids a chance that, the underdog kids a chance to win and be successful versus, other teams.
Yeah, 100%. I've heard you talk before as well about building relationships with your players and kind of all the support staff and stuff. How important is it really to kind of grow and cultivate relationships no matter the level that you're coaching at?
Yeah, I just think it takes a village, and I think that anytime you're uh, helping a young person, I think the more consistent voices that they can hear that are telling them to keep pushing, keep going, keep striving for excellence, be disciplined, be detailed, all those things that you preach to help a kid be successful. And they're ultimately going to go off and do whatever they're going to do, but if you raise them the right way and you give them the right pointers and you've kind of guide them in the right direction, even if they veer off the path. I've had a couple kids who veered off the path for a little bit, but they always remember those lessons that they were taught. They know right from wrong. They know what it looks like to grind and have grit and go through tough times and come out on the other side of adversity, because we put them in adversity. But I think the key thing is building an authentic relationship. Like, I don't just walk around telling kids I love them and I don't even know who they are. Like, I remember, I was telling my wife about this story. There was a kid that, he works with me now, and he was really, he would struggle in the mornings, and nobody ever asked him why he was struggling in the morning. He saw his sister get killed in front of him in the morning, so some days he would just have his head down and he'd be in tears, and everybody be like, he's a problem child. He's a thug. Like, just making up all this stuff. And I'm like, you have not even had a conversation with this kid.
Mhm.
And so a lot of kids get thrown away, but to me, I always say, like, people are the most valuable asset that there is. And so, if you crumble up and have little rips and tears in $100 bill, if you find it, you're still going to be excited about it. And I think that, so many people just give up on kids so quick, and kids are still impressionable. They still can change. They're not, they're not done yet. Like, they're the youth, the future of America. And so I just kind of give them time to open up to me and give me I try to, what we do with our coaches is we say our whys. We get vulnerable with the kids. We try to let them know who we are. We bring our kids around them. We bring our families around them. We try to just open up and be real to them so they can open up and be real to us. And then when we get to actually know them, then we can push them hard and coach them really tough and have those critical conversations with them. We try to get to know where they're from, what's their culture, what's normal to them, right? So, we just try to find out those things first on the front end and build a real authentic relationship. So on the back end, when it's a tough game, a tough situation, a tough moment, we're able to push them further than we would if we just threw them away or we didn't even know anything about the kid.
I love hearing that. I feel like that aspect of coaching is the least talked about when it comes to player development and everything. Um, I really want to get into your offense because it's just, it's kind of a big topic. While doing research for this interview, it seems like everyone's kind of thought about why your offense is unique is having the two sidecar backs and all that. But I feel like there's a lot more to it that no one really sees or understands. So, can you explain from your point of view why you think your offense is difficult to handle?
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of layers to it, and when you peel back the layers, you're looking at something that will cause a defensive coordinator to prepare an entire week, stay up at night, give them headaches, write all types of scout cards, create confusion, make his players be in a panic. And that's all of the stuff that you do that before you even look at like who the players are, right? So first you're looking at like all the schematic things that we present to a defense. And so, I always tell people our offense is a Friday offense, a Saturday offense, and a Sunday offense. And what does that mean? I mean, you'll see high school plays, you'll see the basic standard NCAA plays that you see on Saturday, and then you'll see Sunday NFL plays. And so, really, when you peel back all those layers, that's a lot to uncover because each period of practice, we try to practice a different uh, section, right? So, right, one part of period is an option period, and we're running different types of options. One part of period, we're running perimeter, RPO, those type of plays. Then one period of practice, we're running shots and gadget plays. And then another period of practice, we're running drop back passes, quick game, right? And the quarterback's getting the ball out of his hands on like the quick option stuff that we do. So you have to think about that when you try to break all that down. You have, you know, basically 2 to 3 days as a coach to get scheme knowledge of what that looks like. And then you have to be able to present it to your players within those 2 and 3 days. And then, You have to cut them loose and trust that they can read their keys, make those plays. But then you have to think about the people in which that we're, how are you going to play those matchups and how do we match up? And so I think that's given us an advantage, with lesser talented players. Um, you see us getting to championship games and you see us winning big games and playing teams that we have really, when you look at on paper, if you look player for player, rating for rating, all those things, it looks like, well, they're going to get blown out. They don't have a chance in this game. And you see us at the end of every game, we have a chance to win. And so, we've fallen short at times because of the matchups. And, I always say it's my fault. I'm a coach who believes that it's always the coach's fault. You got to find a way to put kids in that position to win. But if you looked at what we've done, I mean, I don't think that there's been one time that maybe we've gotten blown out or we didn't have and that was the national champion when we played Michigan. But every other time, if you looked at, there wouldn't be teams that are just lining up to play us. They wouldn't think that we were an easy win or, they had just a chance to just blow us out, right? Everybody would think like, man, that's gonna be a tough game. And so, to me, that's your job as a coach to hide your players' weaknesses and show their strengths, but also put them in position strategically to be successful. And so, we've had a lot of All American and All Conference guys that people would say that those guys wouldn't be all conference and All American guys weren't high highly rated recruits, and then, our A level players, we make them play at an A plus level. Like our scheme is going to make sure if a player does have NFL ability or next level ability, he's going to get to show every part of his skill set. We play basketball on grass, which means, conceptual learning tells our players that they can line up anywhere and play at any spot. I always tell our coaches if we have a good player and he's not highlighted, then we're bad coaches, right? So if you see any player that we've had in the past, the Ricky White, back to back 1,000-yard seasons, the Jacob DeJesus, they're lining up in the backfield. They're lining up at every spot at receiver. They're just moving around. They're playing musical chairs, and we're going to try to get the ball to our best guys. But I hope that answered your question. I mean, I think that is a lot of what our offense presents challenges to people, not just, the two backs on the same side. Everybody goes, well, people have always done that, but they don't do it the way we do it. They don't do it where both of those guys in the backfield can get the ball and you can run any run that's ever been ran in football. They can't put together, I watch a lot of people scheme. They can't put together 10 different run schemes in one game with two different guys and both guys being able to get the ball and then option it and then run it with the quarterback as well. And then not even use the quarterback to run, and still protect the runs with RPOs and different shot plays down the field with misdirection and play actions and stuff. So I think just scheme wise, that's what we kind of present. We present definitely a challenge for people. Obviously we have to continue to get better, and our scheme changes every year based on the players that we have. So this year it'll look a little bit different than it looked, if you watched William and Mary, if you watched Howard, if you watched UNLV, right? If you watched like when I was with Sark at Texas, he used some of our stuff. It looks different with every team and every player that we have.
100%. I'm glad you brought up the basketball on grass because I was watching film and I was trying to chart some of your plays. And after about the 10th, 12th play, I gave up with personnel and I was just starting to chart the formations based on what they look like personnel wise. Because I noticed you'd have 21 personnel people on the field and line up in 10 or line up in 11 or line up in some 20, right? So I'm like, there's no way I'm going to lose my mind trying to go through your roster and figure out who these people are. Is that something that's a staple in your offense, is just using your best five guys that you can put anywhere? And did that come from the high school background of being like, hey, this is what we got, we're going to mix and match it as much as possible?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we talked about the relationship piece. We don't throw good players away. We find everybody's strength on our offense. I mean, we use seven linemen sometimes. We use a fullback. We use everybody's strength and we try to make it come alive on the field in some way. Like, where can we put our guys to show their strengths and their skill set to help us go score points? And so we just find ways to use everybody. Like, and I think when you have an inclusive, approach, it gets the kids excited. I mean, they celebrate to get guys in a game. I'll never forget when I was at Waynesboro High School, we went on a 4 or 5 game winning streak at the end of the season to win the conference title deal. And how that happened was we had an autistic kid that was on our team. His mom had asked me for him to be on the team. He couldn't play at all. Like, we weren't able to use him really in games, but the kids would ask me every week, Coach, how many points do we need to be up by to get Eric in the game? And I told him, like, if we're up by 21, like, I'll walk across the field to the other coach and I'll ask, can he get in on kickoff or get in for a play? And so we blew like 3 or 4 teams straight. Like, I mean, blew him out of the water just so he could get in the game. And I never forgot how much it impacted. People think that it's just your best player that makes an impact, but to the kids, they it doesn't matter if you're the first guy on the roster or you're the last guy on the roster. If you're a part of the team and you're a part of the family and the kids want to get you in the game, like, they're going to do everything they can to play a little bit harder to get guys in the game. And so when we put players in, like, we tell every player, like, you have to make the play, you have to be a star, you have to be like a real guy. Like, and everybody who shows that they can make a play, they're a real guy, they're tough, they're going to play the way we want them to play, we give them an opportunity in the game to actually do that. And so that is an exciting thing for the players because they know that their work is not in vain. A lot of times I've argued with coaches we'd only play one running back or two receivers, and I'm like, these other dudes have practiced 330 days out of the year too. Like they've put in the work too and they've showed
Mhm.
that they can make plays. And to me, like, we play freshmen, we play walk-ons, we play older guys, like we're just gonna get the guys on the field and help our team be successful. I think we don't really lose the team element, and in football, the number one thing that's guaranteed is injury. So we try to develop our 1, 2, and 3 deep players as they're all the starter. You're all forced to make plays. They all get coached hard. They all have to understand, but we always tell, like, the Jordan Edisons of the world, the Ricky Whites, the Xavier Worthies, like, hey man, you're like the LeBron of the team. Like, you're gonna have to make these big plays. Like, we need you to make these big plays. Like, the guys are dependent on you to make these big plays. And so, that's kind of what we do. I don't know if it, I heard Dabo Sweeney was a guy who played a lot of players at Clemson when they went on that run and won a lot of championships, and it worked for them. But that was always something that I just thought that was big to reward guys with. I mean, practice is great. Like Allen Iverson said, we talk about practice or we talk about the game. Like, don't have me practice 330 days as hard as I can every single day, working my ass off, and then I don't ever get a chance to play an actual game. I mean, it's about the game.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I'm glad you brought that up because your number one philosophy, culture in your offense is how hard you play without the ball determines how much you love your teammates. Can you explain kind of where that came from or derived from?
Yeah, so I had a crazy Italian basketball coach in Pittsburgh, Coach Sapochny. He won a lot of championships. Well respected guy, won a ton of basketball games. And, his big thing was like diving on the floor and, just losing your, like, playing great defense, rebounding, and I watched this Rick Pitino speech the other day and he was like, team don't give a damn about you missing shots. Get back and play defense. Like, like all those little things on, like, that's the difference between, I think it's important for guys to play multiple sports because you learn multiple lessons that will help you in your sport, whatever your said sport is. And so, I learned that in basketball, and that was really just like, what are you going to do to win the game? Like, how competitive are you? Like, when they get the ball or they say the play's going to them, they're going to run hard. They're going to, try to do whatever they can do when they get their opportunity. But as a receiver, as a running back, like what makes the plays work, right? As an O lineman, you block every play. You really get no credit. The only time you ever get your name announced as an alignment is if you mess up, like if you give up a sack, right? But other than that, you get no praise to be an offensive lineman. So it's really like getting guys to, lose their ego, strip themselves of themselves a little bit, right? Because I always say we want the best you for us to be successful. And so it's just about guys saying, you know what, I'm going to show my teammates that I really want to win. I'm really about the team. I really love you guys by how hard I'm playing. I'm willing to die out here on this field for you guys. If I'm a receiver and I'm not getting the ball, it's a flood concept. And I know that they have the corner and the safety over top. I'm running full speed all the way to the end zone, trying to clear both of those guys out so the guys underneath can get the ball. Right. And so that helped me as a player. And so when I played football, I used to be the deep route guy, right? And it's not fun being the deep route guy when you just run down there and you don't get the ball, right? You're not the quarterback's alert or you're not actually getting the ball. But eventually, I really embraced that role as okay, I'm the fast guy on the team. They want me to just clear out, I'll clear out. And when I really embraced that role, that's how I broke the yards per catch record. Because now I'm saying, like, look, fellas, I'm burning this dude. Like, throw it up. Like, I got you.
Mhm.
Like, if at first it just came running down there full speed, just pissed off that I have to run down there for the love of the game. That's what we call it. The love of the game. You're just running out there and you're not getting the ball. But then it became like Brennan's open, like give him a chance. And then those big plays got made. And so I tell guys, if you embrace that, like the ball just finds you. The ball finds you. Coach Whipple used to have a good saying that if everybody's running, everybody's catching. And I love that. Like if everybody's like playing as hard as they can, like people are just making plays. It just starts to happen for you. That's where that magic comes from.
Yeah, I really think everything you said there, it plays on film too. Like you see it when you're watching your offense from the last couple of years. You see guys kind of doing what they should be, right, on paper, but not every program is able to get those guys to do that. Um, I've always wondered this about offensive guys since I'm a defensive guy. When you're game planning for an opponent, how in depth are you going into the defensive like breakdown? Like, is it more on a surface level? You're like, yeah, they're an odd front quarters team and they like 5 men cover one pressures on third down, or are you going like, hey, when they're in when we're in trips, they're playing, cover seven stubby and safety's got this rule and the corner's got this rule. How are we attacking it to break those rules? Like, is it a mixture or
The number one thing is who's their D line as far as the people. Are they blockable or unblockable? Which one of them is unblockable? Who do we have to chip to? Who do we have to slide to? Who do we have to cut? Right. First, it's the first level. You're trying to figure out, can we handle the first level? Because ultimately, if you can't handle the first level, they're game wreckers, right? So that's why the D line is a high paid position. You want to have three sets of great D linemen, and the programs that do, right, they usually are in the championship game, right? If you have a great D line, right? So um, D line is really the first like that's the biggest key on telling, okay, how good is this defense going to be? And then it's just breaking down. I mean, we break down everything, man. There's not anything that we will miss. I mean, we'll go through how you play each personnel package. We'll go through how you play each formation, right? We'll have personnel cut up. We'll have a formation cut up. We'll have a down and distance cut up. We'll have a situational call cut up. We'll have a backed up. We'll have a red zone. We'll have how you play the field zones. I mean, every little, because as a middle aged coach, when I was a younger coach, I was about passion, energy. Now I'm kind of a grumpy old man. Like, you know, um, I just don't want to let the players down. I want them, if we ever lose a game, I want them to say, man, no, dude, that team just whooped our ass. Not that we weren't prepared or
Mhm.
they out schemed us. Like, I want them to be like, oh man, like that team. that team was like freaking like got after us. Not that, you know, like I want them to see like, man, look at these plays that we missed. Like these plays were all open. Like we had an opportunity here, we had an opportunity there. Not where like, coach, what was that call? Coach, you didn't tell us they were going to do this. Coach, we didn't know they were going to do that. That's one of my greatest joys as a coach now, to really be able to sit there on Sunday, win, lose, or draw, and the kids saying, like, Coach, you prepared us for every single thing that could pop up. I mean, we've scored touchdowns and gotten plays off of guys that they've gotten beaten on 2 and 3 years ago. So if a defensive coordinator has 3 or 4 years of tape and he got beat on a play in a certain situation, we've literally called the same play that a defense coordinator's got beat on from 3 years prior that he might have forgot about on a 3rd and 2 on the left hash in the same spot of the field and called it, right? Because the key thing is anytime you get beat on something, did you fix it? Right. And if you're preparing for our offense, you're going like, they got all this stuff we got to prepare for. You're not thinking about what you got beat on 3 years ago or 2 years ago or a year ago. Right. So we're breaking down everything, man, to be honest with you. Like we're not leaving any stone unturned. I mean, our GAs are miserable, are like, and then our coaches, they're looking for all types of ways to exploit any weakness with matchups, any type of tails that we can get, from the opponent. We're gonna look at all that stuff.
Do you notice keeping a lot of the same personnel packages in for you guys? Do you notice defense getting a little simpler because of that? Because they're not able. Because like for me, I'm the first thing I'm looking at is personnel. Can I call this game based on the personnel that's in? Like, is it going to limit formations? Is it going to limit plays? But for you guys might have the same 5 or 6 guys out there on a bunch of different formations, a bunch of different plays, and it makes it, for me at least, a headache. Do you get like the basic AFC, like auto formation check type of defenses?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you involve the tempo element into it, we're not warp speed like we used to be. There was a time where we were just warp speed, go fast, out of control, fast. And I think there's a place for that. We always start off going like that, and then we scale back to so we can always go fast when we need to. And if we see any type of weakness or we see any uh, call alls or auto checks, then we're really going to try to exploit you and go fast. And so for us, I mean, we see a lot of base defense. We see a lot of really players' eyes being bad, keys being off, just from there's just a lot that we present to you. And as a player, I mean, even players come and they keep it real. Players always tell the truth. The coach is gonna, have his ego and be like, yeah, they did this, they did that, right? Whatever. But the players are gonna say, like, Coach, we were struggling all week trying to figure out what the hell you guys were doing, And so we're just trying to present challenges with not only our scheme, but then we have the tempo operation in which we do things, going fast, going slow, shifts, motions, bringing a whole wave of people onto the field and everybody being in a panic because we just brought a wave of new people on the field, but we might line up in the same formation, like you said, and do things with different personnel groupings, but it looks like it's 10, it looks like it's 11, it looks like it's 12, so we just try to make sure that we keep the defense off guard and we dictate the game. We don't want to let a defense dictate what we do. We want to dictate the actual game.
For sure. I mean, I'm just glad I don't have to play you guys. I'll say that. um, do you have any advice for guys who are trying to get into college from high school, coaching wise, or even any advice for a younger guy who's maybe a position coach who wants to be an OC or a head coach?
Yeah, I'd say first that before you try to jump into college, I mean, I think I think there's some merit to jumping into college, right? But I think there's also the ability to. It depends on kind of what you want to do. Like if you want to go into college and have respect when you walk in the room, like people actually hear your opinion, ideas, and your thought process. you need to go develop somewhere first. You need to be able to say, this is how we did it. This is the success we had with doing it this way. This is what I did when things broke down and I fixed it. And like develop your own coaching voice. And you have to actually coach to do that. Right. And so a lot of guys, they've never coached before and they're like, I just want to be a college coach and I want to make 100 grand and I want to, like, you have to think that everybody that you're going into a room with has been doing this for 5+ years, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. I mean, how are you going to go into the room and expect them to hear you, right? If you don't even really know what you're saying yet, right? Or you think that you're the first one who ever presented this idea. And so my advice is always to, develop that, go where there's a need. Like if you really want to coach, go where there's a need at, right? So there's tons of programs who have a need that really need coaches, and go just freaking coach. Like just go get in there, get your feet wet, learn how to coach kids. Like, and I always say with like former players, like coach a position that you didn't play. Like for me, I coached quarterbacks and I had to go do, I remember going in Arizona and Virginia, and I actually did like real quarterback, like went through quarterback school as like a quarterback, like really doing the drills and like really filling out what you needed to do to be great at the position, and asking quarterbacks and going through every element of what I needed to learn, going to O-line clinics and going to running back seminars. And, I played receiver. That's easy. Give me any dude. I'm like, all right, I can turn anybody into a receiver. Like I played that position and made it to the highest level. Like I know how to, get a receiver to play receiver, but can I get these other positions to play at a high level? Like if you go into a room and you say, hey man, I'm a DB guy, and they say, well, I only got a linebacker job. Would you say, no, I can't take the job, I'm only a DB guy? Right. And so it's about how valuable can you make yourself and really learn, the positions, and learn how to, coach and teach, right? Because you are an educator, a teacher when you become a coach. And then the other way is just to go volunteer. I have a couple guys that are on my staff now that they volunteered. They came by, they just kept bugging me. They just kept showing up. They just kept coming to coaching clinics. They just kept coming to camps. I'd really love an opportunity. I really love an opportunity sitting in meetings and learning. And eventually I gave them an opportunity. They did grunt work. They grunted it out for a year, 2 years, and now they're full-time paid coaches doing really well for themselves. And so a lot of people do it a lot of different ways. I think it's just you have to see what situation you're in and what you kind of want to, what path you kind of want to take to get in.
Makes sense. I think that's really, really good advice. Um, Last two questions here for you. You and your offense have been getting a ton of attention, obviously, the last few years. So I'm sure you've had plenty of programs wanting to bring you on in some sort of capacity. So why Sac State?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately my wife loves California, so right. And I started my coaching career in Northern California, and it's like, there's all these opportunities, right, that people talk about. And it's like, I got into college football the opposite way. I was a high school head coach that didn't want to leave being a high school head coach. I loved every element of being a head coach. Um, I'm not a guy who likes to be told what to do. I don't like to just be like, yes, sir, like, and not really have an opinion. Like, I will do that because I respect the chain of command and I want to win. Like, at more than anything, I'm a winner, right? So my ego is whatever it takes for the team to win. And so for me, when there was high paying coordinator jobs or position coach jobs or whatever, to me, the opportunity to be a head coach in the state of California, a state that I love, a state that I know, a state that's done a lot for me, and then be at a school where the president is young, ambitious, and trying to take this thing to the highest possible level that he can take it to. And there's a lot of support and backing. And then being in a city where you're the biggest show in town, there is no other football program in Sacramento. And this is a football rich area with people who love football and embrace that. So it was a no brainer to us.
Oh, that's awesome. Last question here. You brought in a ton of new guys so far, and you've only been there maybe less than 2 months at this point. Why should everyone be excited about Sac State Hornets football in 2025 and beyond?
I think we're just going to play a quality brand of football. If you look at any of the coaches' resumes that we brought in, that's what the track record speaks to, and success leaves clues. And so that's why we were able to acquire the players that we were able to bring in. And so it's going to be all about us putting a quality product on the field. It'll be a winning brand of football that you'll look at and go like, man, these dudes play hard. These dudes play tough. And then it's exciting from the playmakers and skill guys that we'll have. And so it's an exciting time in Sacramento. It's all about go Sacramento right now for everybody here. And hopefully the nation will know about it soon.
Awesome. Love to hear that. All right, Coach, I'm going to end the recording here. I really appreciate